For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know even as also I am known. And now abideth faith, hope, charity, these three, but the greatest of these is charity. Good morning. In these little films, I've been exploring what it might mean to live a grounded life, a life lived close to the reality and roots of things, and a faith similarly grounded. Yesterday, in looking at the parable of the Good Samaritan, we found that the grounded life can also be a place of risk and vulnerability, certainly for the wounded traveller and for the Samaritan who stooped to help and heal him. Also, we find in that story hints that the relationship of charitable love, of self-giving love, is at the ground of all being and life. That is something, Jesus says, that you have to go and do to test out. Don't take my word for it, almost, as if to say, that's a story, that's a tale, the Good Samaritan. Go and do likewise if you want to work out whether that's actually true, that a relationship of mutual self-giving love is the truth beneath all truths, the thing that will endure beyond all others. Charity. These weeks of confinement and in the pandemic have been called the Great Reset by one writer, and I hope that that's true in some ways. And over the centuries in Britain, certainly, the great resetting power has been charity. That word, if we want to understand love in this context, in the British context, I think we have to approach it sideways and begin with the word charity. That's why I used the King James translation there, because that's the interpretation of love which has reformed our national life, our local and communal life again and again and again, when we've returned to charity as the endearing thing. Many ways of discovering that and approaches to it, and there's a familiar phrase, charity begins at home. Charity begins at home and it doesn't end there. So charity there's a deep truth in that. We learn charity at home, hopefully, and it then ripples out in unending rings beyond that. And one philosopher, one thinker who grasped this more, I think, than anyone else in the 20th century, certainly, is a chap called John Macmurray, a Scottish philosopher. And I wanted to close just by reading to you a short passage from one of his books, where he describes that discovery of love in the home and what it can do. It is in the home that we learn to love, in response to the love and care which supplies our needs. All of us learn this lesson with difficulty and very imperfectly, and it is this which makes persons of us. Love is no natural instinct. We are born perfect egoists, he writes, demanding and expecting that the whole world shall serve our pleasure. Some of us never grow out of that. Love is the capacity to break out of this natural self-centeredness and to care for someone else. It is the power to set our interests outside ourselves, to affirm not our own needs and our own pleasure, but the pleasure and needs of someone else. In this there is involved the creation of conscience, of selfhood and reason, since all these are based upon and express the power to be interested for its own sake in what is not ourselves. By learning to love, we are taken into the common life of the family and become persons in a personal community. The creation of personality by love, he continues, is a process which is never completed. It goes on to widen and deepen the common life and our capacity to share in it. And it's here that he arrives at the place of religion, as he calls it. Religion or faith is the unifying principle of the personal life of mankind. In religion, he concludes, the personal life has become the clue to all experience and all reality. God is our Father, and all we are brethren. We are at home in the world. God bless you as you go to ground.